Good evening. I'm Matterall. Tonight on Talking in Stations, timers are going off in Delve and period basis. We'll go to live footage with Ron USMC right after this program. Today, FC Progodlegend wrote and published an update of TEST and PAPI's point of view of the war so far. So we'll check out the state of the war according to Progodlegend. And finally, Andrew Groen puts out an update to his kickstarting supporters about Empires of E Volume 2. It's quite a book in itself. All that and more on Talking in Stations, the EVE Online report. Let's get started. How's it going, Mannix?
Hey, it's going great. It's just us tonight. So,
Well, let's first just give a preview of what we're looking at, what we're going to be looking at later today, and that is a huge amount of timers coming up in Delve and period basis belonging to Goon Swarm. Right now, there is a fight beginning in KTAC 6, K16, that's Delve. We'll take you there shortly. But first, let's go back to the top story today, and that is the Progodlegend update. And you read it, I read it. What did you think?
well, there's a lot of spin, of course. Definitely directed at toward the legacy member base for sure. He went in to just say, really he's just going after Asher and the Imperium leadership for some of the decisions they've made. He spent a lot of the time on the boson not working and how he looks like he did think it was such a great idea. I've a couple of things. He kind of criticized him for switching out of the EU time zone, thinking that the initiative was able to better help better help the Imperium during the the EU time zone. He pointed out that the initiative was able to field 1,400 pilots in that time zone, and now they can barely form over 100 for key timers. And this is coming from Progodlegend, so you got to take that with a grain of salt and everything. And he goes in to criticize them about the SRP, also claiming that goons also had their SRP reduced. He gives Elo Knott some kudos, right, for coaching, quote unquote, the Imperium pilots, and gave credit to Elo for the boson plan altogether. Right, so he kind of came out. It's like, hey, that was Elo's plan.
Yeah.
Yeah, and most of it is just him criticizing the boson, and then he goes down to criticize Asher and more of the Imperium leadership about not giving enough emphasis on server conditions because of lag. He goes on to say PAPI leadership has spent most of our planning meetings talking about the server. Every one of our advances must account for the server conditions, and we must always put ourselves in an advantageous position for lag. And he goes on to say, Asher and the Imperium kind of don't think the server lag is a big deal or Tada's a big deal, but then he goes to criticize Asher for blaming, bad server weather for their loss. So he PGO is just saying that's poor planning, not really the server's fault. Which, like I said, this is coming from PGL, so take it with a grain of salt. I'm sure, if Asher comes out with an update that we could preview, we would definitely be giving him the same floor, right? And it just goes on, to say at the end there that Thursday is the first chunk of iHub timers, as we see here in Delve, and saying from the destruction of Goon's home for the past 5 years will begin. So from there, the destruction of Goon's home for the past 5 years will begin. So,
Yeah.
And he goes on saying, just he pretty much Pappy's doing great, Imperium's bad. So that was that.
Well, I think.
Do you have?
Sorry?
Any thoughts you have?
Yeah, you have to look at the negative space when you read these documents. You don't listen to what they say, you listen to how they say it and what they're not saying. And that gives you a fuller picture. And reading this document, there's a couple things that came out for me. One is it is a true update in that this is their perspective on what they're seeing. But yes, he definitely lavished Elo Knight with creative FCing, saying he's basically propping up the Imperium. And that may be true, it may not be true. I don't actually know. I do know that Elo Knight does a lot of work when he is FCing, and so he's definitely in there doing a lot of things. But they're eager to really put the focus of attention and the credit and the credibility towards Elo Knight, who's not a Goon Swarm guy. So that is there to irritate Asher and the other FCs and to create divisions between Elo Knight and what would be considered the regular FC guys, right? Because he's a hired gun.
No, absolutely.
So that's what's going on there. The other thing is I didn't see any reference to up to now. This was more like the last week. It wasn't everything up to now. It didn't pick up where it left off, where progodlegend talked about the reasons for going to war against Goon Swarm. So he didn't continue to make that case, which I think is missing here. If you're going to have narratives that begin, you want to pick up where you left off. And it feels like there's a lot of empty space between where they started, which was saying, hey, everybody, this is a war against a game type that's locking up the game. It's in all our interests to attack. So come join us while we do this thing. And so he picks up by saying, hey, we're winning, things are going well, and doesn't ever reference the purpose of it. And so that tells me they have everybody they need. So they're not trying to recruit public people to jump in the fray like they did in World War B1 about 5 years ago, where Manfred Sidious was on Reddit saying, hey, if you want to get involved, here's how you get involved. Contact these people and they'll get you situated. And they were appealing to the public to come help out in this big fight. None of that here. So I think PAPI has as many people as they need to do what they want to do. That's the other thing. There was definitely a lot of talk about the, as you said, the maneuver. What was it called? The boson trap.
Yeah, the boson trap.
Yeah, and I think what he's trying to do there is he's trying to take that off the table because Matani in the last meta show really stuck on that, right? Like his whole rant was, we just did the singular most exciting thing this game has ever seen. We win. Even though we're not winning the battles, doesn't matter. We won because we did this really cool thing. And so it's almost like Matani is putting attention on that kind of event that's exciting and electrifying to the fan base, and it was, and saying that's what's important about this game. You know, ISK is just ISK, and money is just money, and territory is just territory. So don't really, all that stuff comes and goes, but you know, this is forever. And so he's trying to put that on the table as like a legendary moment. And what Progod is trying to do is to take it off the table and saying, it didn't work because you guys didn't plan it right. So, and if it was planned right, the credit goes to Elo Knight because he's the only one creative enough to think about doing that sort of thing. So that's what I mean by really sticking it to them.
Right. Well, I mean, he was extremely critical of Asher throughout the whole thing as well, right? Going as far as calling negligence, right? Negligent.
Yeah.
Yeah, there you go. And like kind of blaming Asher for the losses so far.
That's an interesting part of the whole thing is they're dissecting the strategy so far of the enemy, right? And what they're saying from the PAPI perspective is what they've done is they've defanged themselves. They've lost so many dreads they can't actually compete now when they need to compete. And they did it for no good reason because now there's a keep star in place. So all that expense, that 5 trillion in ships, right? The thousands of ships, but more importantly, the thousands of, is it thousands? The many hundreds of dreads, the thousands of battleships. Yeah.
It probably wasn't 1,000 dreads.
They wasted those for a delay of a week and a half. And that wasn't a good investment. Instead, you probably should have kept those dreads to be able to fight right now on the ground over things like iHubs, to use those dreads to take advantage of slip-ups that Pappy might get into, where they might lose Titans. You might shave off 5 or 6 Titans with some dreads. So you want to make sure you have plenty of dreads. And I think Pappy is saying they really just kind of didn't do anything. And then when it came to the Delve border, they said everything now. And in doing so, they lost a ton. And it just wasn't a very good expense from the Imperium side, again, according to Pappy. So I think what they're doing is diagnosing Goons aren't fighting, or Imperium's not fighting this war correctly, and then giving credit for what is working to Elo Knight, and not going back and saying, come on, everybody, we need all your help to do this. I think they're in a very confident position right now. And the last thing is...
Oh, yeah. He almost all but claimed victory there in the last paragraph.
Well, the last thing is what's happening right now, and we'll go to it in just a few minutes, but these iHubs are the next phase, because now Delve has been breached. There's a Keepstar sitting there. People have moved into it and are using it as a forward operating base. The fight is now in Delve, and what we're seeing are iHubs go down in Delve and period basis. And if we look at it, you might see a ton of stuff get flipped. It depends on how aggressive the defense is for these regions. Period basis is not important to the fight. The fight is in Delve. However, this is going to be something of bragging rights. If it gets defended, you could say that's an important thing. If it gets taken over, you could say it's an important thing. It's an important sign of strength. But we don't know. The real fight is actually here in Delve, where there is actually a constellation right over here that has all been reinforced, and that goes out tonight. So they're already fighting in K6 right here. Just a couple jumps from 319. So we shall see. Also, they point to the allies, right? Remember, you want to target by poverty. Well, you also want to target rhetoric by poverty. And so they're in this Pappy or progodlegend declaration on where the war is. He really aims at initiative and says, like, initiative's already hurting. They're either folding into Goon Swarm or they're peeling off corporations. And that's going to be interesting to see how the initiative comes out, because if they're not able to get people in fleets, as he writes in there, that's going to be an interesting development.
Well, we had those couple corps left for goons, and my guess was that they left because the U.S. time zone for the initiative is small compared to the Goon Swarm. So the initiative is mostly an EU time zone alliance.
Well, that's not a good sign. I think I think this was mentioned in there too, when they turned all the defense to U.S. time zone, I think that's Goon Swarm strong time zone. They're mostly an American group. So we'll see if that was in the end a smart move, or if they're just overcome by too many U.S. time zone fighters as well, because TEST is mostly American as well, whereas NC Dot and PL are mostly European. So you take them off the table a little bit. And then the wild card here is Fraternity. It seems to show up for every fight. So late US time zone enters early Chinese time zone. So you might see them enter the fray, which is what we've seen at the end of a lot of these big, long battles. You'll see Fraternity jump in and reinforce the Pappy side of things, because the timing is right.
Yeah, the next couple weeks are going to tell us a lot, I believe, on how long the Imperium is going to be able to hold. I also believe if the Imperium can hold for probably 3 or 4 more weeks, I might start putting pressure on Pappy forces, because that'll be another month that they're deployed, right? You can't stay deployed forever. At some point, you need to go back and tend to your farms and fields, especially with all the changes that's happening right now. So both sides, even Pappy, is going to start running low on resources.
Well, I've thought of that. Well, first of all, no, they're not, because they're not spending like the Imperium is. The Imperium may have deeper pockets, though. But if you look,
that's what I'm saying. They're still spending, right? It might be 3 to 1, but it's still.
Yeah, but if you look here on this, this is fleet.com. The Imperium's, there's 60,000, 61,000 ships lost. And you're right, they are spending, these two teams here are, let's see if I can, yeah, so you have Test and Brave, and that's basically Legacy, and this is Panda Fam over here. So that's what Team 2 and 3 are actually together. But together they're about 70,000 ships. But here's the difference. Imperium's lost about 8 trillion, and PAPI forces have lost about 4.5.
Right, but a lot difference. Of the Imperium is structures too, right? That like the cost of the structure doesn't matter until you replace it.
Right, but
so as long
but
as
PAPI's lost 5 keep stars, or they lost 4 keep stars, so that would
4. That's their loss, about $1 trillion, right?
Yeah, so I think that kind of negates like all the Fortizars and all that other stuff. The point is that it looks to me like Imperium is spending a lot more. However, they may have deeper pockets. As far as tiring out, I think that I don't know what you would go back to right now. I've been watching this war as long as you have. We've both been here since July 5th, even before that, preparing for it. And this is kind of the place to be for these groups. Not for everybody, but for these groups. There's nothing to go back home to right now. And I don't see that changing within the next 3 or 4 weeks. I think maybe 4 more months, you might see some fatigue. But before that, I honestly don't think you'll see people wanting to leave this theater for something else. The fights are too good. They're too big. They're too historic. There's way too much action going on. I think there's a lot of ways to get involved. I don't see why you would want to be anywhere else than this fight. And I think that goes for Imperium as well. I don't think people want to take off unless they're trying to save some assets, but this is where you want to be to fight for your guys. Okay.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting to see. Is there anything else we need to go over?
Yeah. So let's look at the timer boards. Right now you have, again, a battle in K-6. That's Delve. And as you can see, all these timers are coming up today. Everything from, I'll just highlight it. Those are 23, 24. This is the next 4 hours, all those.
Yeah, it's going to be a very busy night for this war as far as timers go. Yeah. And this is the next battle, right? Is over these timers, over the hubs. That's going to be very important for the next couple weeks. And like I said, if the Imperium can hold for a little while, they could have some hope and some light at the end of the tunnel. If PAPI forces are able to just roll through these timers, Delve's probably not be long lived, right? And they're going to need to develop an exit strategy of some type or concede to putting all their assets in NPC Delve.
Well, anything's possible. I think the big question mark is the Titan battle that was supposed to happen. Is it going to happen? And I think Villy has stated that every day that goes by, it's less likely to happen. Just because you're not getting critical mass to even want to attempt it on the Imperium side. So that is still a wild card. The Imperium is not weak by any measure. And at any moment, PAPI could slip up for whatever reason and get crucified. And that may have to happen a few times for there to be more of a balance, because it really seems like the upper hand is firmly with PAPI. But a cataclysmic fight that PAPI loses, I don't know if they recover from that. And if they do, can they recover a second time? These are the wild cards that we don't know. So we'll see. I think it's way too early for Delve to go collapsing and cascading and trying to find a way out. Although we did see a Titan try to get out and was destroyed. It was killed in Iridia.
They'd have to move up through Fountain, I believe, if they wanted to exit.
Yeah, I think that Titan, I won't look it up now, but got picked off in Iridia. Dangerous territory. Iridia is a graveyard for super capitals. When I was in NC, we did a few operations there. They were bait operations against the Losecnia Schulpen. I think they were run by Travis. And, they were risky. Those guys, LSH, are no joke, and they have that place like locked down. So if you're trying to get through, you should have a lot of experience, or you should have some help, and then maybe you'll make it through.
And so I guess that's about it for today's show. Unless you got anything else.
Yeah, there's a couple things. Want to move over to this last thing. Sorry, I know we're running late. We just went long on that section. Want to look here. Empires of Eve Part 2, Volume 2, has come out. You guys know that we had an interview with Andrew Groen, and it went on for 2.5 hours. I'm going to republish that here in just a second. But it is a fantastic interview with a brilliant guy who wrote a great book about 2009 through 2014 EVE Online. Ton of history in here. It's a big book. It's a big read. I think it took me like 12 hours. So yeah, you definitely have something to look forward to. But anyway, he wrote a blog entry or a message to his fans and the people who already backed the book, and they're the ones that are receiving it now. But this will be out in November, so you can check that out. So what I'll give you now is a link to that interview. Make sure you watch it. It's really, really worthwhile. It's just me and him. We talked for about 2.5 hours about his book and about other things in EVE Online. So that's that. Look at that. It's fantastic. $170,000 from EVE Online fans. Tells you how thirsty EVE Online fans are for EVE content. And this is all player-driven content. So it's what the players did. It's not what the company did. This is what the players did with the game, with the sandbox. That's why it's something that's very hard to put together, and he did a fantastic job doing that. But now that I look at that gargantuan number, I feel good for him. He deserves every penny and more. But it's also a good idea to remind you that we need support too on Talking in Stations. So make sure to support us through Patreon or also I think PayPal, but you can go to talkinginstations.com, or you can find Matterall at Patreon. I think it's all written right here in the text. And if you can't, that's okay. Just give us, thumbs up and reviews. And that's the kind of thing that also is sometimes better than financial support. But if you like this stuff, support us and we will keep making it. Okay, that's all we have today. I think right now we're going to go over to some live war footage. I want to thank you guys for showing up today. Thank you, Mannix.
You're welcome. No problem.
All right. Well, here we go. We're going to go check out Ron and see what's going on in the war. Take care. We'll see you tomorrow.